Welcome back, boys, to another Into the Radius 2 dev diary, where I summarize every dev diary that gets released on Into the Radius 2. And we enjoy a cigarette together while I do so. Today, we're basically going to be talking about all of the trials and tribulations that are soon to come when Into the Radius 2 does eventually release into early access. A lot of people seem to think that early access means you're gonna get a finished game. It's gonna be polished and ready, bug-free. Well, unfortunately, that completely defeats the purpose of an early access launch. Early access is literally meant to help fund and back the devs so that they can continue to develop this game that they have the vision for, as well as basically working with the community to help stomp out some of the bugs, maybe even add in additional things that they hadn't planned on but now know is like a very core thing that the community wants, because we were able to play the early version of the game and give them that input. So long story short, that is what you can expect when it comes to early access. That's what the devs meant when they named the dev diary Trials and Tribulations. I cannot make it any more clear that once we can play Into the Radius 2 in early access, it is not going to be perfect by any means. Okay, so perfect. That's the way that we're going to start this video. Just wanted you guys to know that right off the fucking bat so that there are no misunderstandings. Alright, now let's go ahead and get into the specifics of all of this. The first issue that the devs kind of were faced with when they were creating Into the Radius 2 is an issue that comes up with nearly every sequel to anything, movies, games. Doesn't matter. How are you going to improve upon the original and still retain a lot of the core concepts of the game that veteran players love? Because you don't want to just burn the bridge right off the bat that is your current fan base. All of the veterans that have played hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, some of those guys. You want to keep them interested. You basically want to improve the things that they loved about the first game. And on the other hand, you also want to create new things for the game. You don't want it to just be a carbon copy of the original. You want to improve upon the base mechanics of the first game and then add new concepts or new types of content. It will really just push the sequel over the edge of what players, both new and experienced, come to expect from the game. And the third part to this is not only does it need to be interesting to veterans and newbies alike, it also needs to be accessible to newbies so that it'll be easy for new people to come in, join the community, join the game and the series, and really be able to just kind of slide right in for lack of a better wording. Boy, do I have a way with words. Now, apparently right off the bat, the devs came up with a couple of concepts, apparently, for Into the Radius 2 that they just drugged behind the barn and shot because they were too far off from the original idea of the game, which is that it's literally just a dark game, kind of a psychological thriller too, with realistic weapons and an absolutely killer atmosphere. These are things that make Into the Radius great. And the devs actually noted in the dev diary that if we want to hear about some of these rejected concepts, we can let them know, okay? So comment down below if you guys want to hear about some of these rejected concepts that didn't ultimately make it into the Radius 2. After they just torched these concept ideas that were a little too far out there for Into the Radius 2, the devs settled on basically creating the ultimate Into the Radius game. The one they had envisioned in their mind when they were initially making the first Into the Radius, but were limited due to lack of resources. So that is first and foremost for Into the Radius 2. It's going to be Into the Radius, but on another level, looking real fucking nice. And a second big aspect that they're focusing on for Into the Radius 2, is making it feel like a brand new, different game. And they're doing this in a few different ways. One of those massive ways is by making co-op a reality in Into the Radius 2, as well as other things like a more cohesive visual design, the game's actual narrative, and a few other important elements that I'm sure they will discuss in future dev diaries. Now let's get back to talking about the important stuff. Co-op. Co-op was literally the most requested feature for Into the Radius 1, other than direct modding. The entire community has been wanting to play Into the Radius with the boys for fucking ever, man. And the fact that we're getting it in Into the Radius 2 in any capacity is just absolutely cash money, dude. Even the devs agree on this. They said they wanted co-op. They want to be able to play with their colleagues and friends. And co-op is a really exciting way to add some more variance into the gameplay for Into the Radius 2, while also not having to compromise on the actual immersive feeling of the game and just your overall experience. It shouldn't be too different between playing by yourself and playing with a friend. The devs basically decided that co-op wasn't going to be some kind of different variant of the game that has different content or any special things for specifically co-op. I'm sure they debated this and agreed that Into the Radius 2 is going to be the exact same game for either single player mode or co-op mode. You're going to be playing the exact same campaign. The only difference is that there's going to be a friend with you, but there's no special content or anything like that. The decision to do this probably took a fucking massive weight off of the actual developer's shoulders. I'm sure that the programmers were there just literally just crying tears of joy that they weren't gonna have to create a co-op specific campaign with different shit compared to a single player mode. So that automatically, it was an amazing decision on behalf of the developers, because I'm sure if they decided to make a special co-op mode with different kind of content for multiplayer, this shit probably wouldn't be getting released until like the fourth quarter of 2025, buddy. And thankfully, because of the open kind of nature of the game with so many different things to do and a variety of ways to play, it really allows the devs a lot of space when it comes to being able to make a co-op campaign mode feel the exact same as a solo campaign mode, the only difference being you got your buddy with you. And obviously, just the mere fact of having another person in the radius to interact with, I assume it's going to make the game feel completely brand new all on its own. And before you think, oh, well, it sounds like it's gonna be easy to make a co-op mode then. What? They're just keeping everything the same? Kind of, but not really. So basically, this is the gist. Co-op is a technical, logistical fucking nightmare for programmers. With every game mechanic, every kind of interaction, I'm assuming even item spawn rate, enemy spawn rate, things of that sort too, rewards, narrative, in-game progression, and even like in-game interfaces. All of these decisions for how to incorporate these different mechanics into the game need to be filtered through a lens of how is this going to work in co-op mode. So it's not like Into the Radius 2's campaign was made to be purely solo and then they can just magically have co-op work with it perfectly. That's definitely not how it works. While they were programming for the solo campaign mode of Into the Radius 2, the devs had to be constantly checking their work. Are there any issues that are going to arise from creating the UI design like this when it comes to a co-op multiplayer campaign? How will this mechanic be affected by there now being a whole nother explorer to interact with it, maybe even at the exact same time as their friend? So many different little details that the devs have to comb through and make sure are just right in order for multiplayer and solo campaign to kind of blend together in that sweet spot zone right down the middle, to where you can have an amazing solo campaign, just rock freaking solid, dude, and then there will be a little bit of overlap with multiplayer aspects of the game that maybe you'll notice, maybe you won't. And then there's also kind of this multiplayer side to the whole equation where you're having an absolute baller time with multiplayer, all of the fun new ways that you can mess around in Into the Radius 2 with your buddies and really just make it feel like a brand new game, but at the same time still having that overlapped midsection where you're like, damn dude, this feels like Into the Radius 1 and now I just got my buddy here. But let's not forget, like I said, for the programmers and the devs of the game, co-op is a goddamn nightmare, dude, and it's still a nightmare. It hasn't stopped being a nightmare. So just to clarify one more time, okay, Into the Radius 2 is meant to be a single player game. However, because the devs have been kind of looking through, picking through all of these different things while programming Into the Radius 2 game mechanics, you're gonna be able to experience that single player campaign, but in multiplayer, and it will go off without a hitch, hopefully. But, and I cannot restate this enough, there isn't gonna be anything special about a multiplayer campaign. In a past Dev Diary, the devs even said that basically if you do multiplayer, you're still going to be kind of participating and watching, but you won't specifically be able to interact with some of the bigger portions of the game's story. And I'm not entirely sure what the heck they mean about that. It just goes to show you that you're gonna kind of be like a sideline character, you're gonna be a side character. All right, and then whoever is actually hosting the lobby or server for the multiplayer campaign, they're going to be the one kind of playing main character mode. And basically to wrap up this Dev Diary summary, I'm just gonna say it again, boys. For those of you who are interested in purchasing early access, just know there are going to be missing features, all right, missing content later to be added to the game during development of early access. And I can't stress this one enough, and you can sure as shit expect some bugs. So early access is going to be the biggest challenge for the developers and maybe even for the early adopters, because who knows how buggy this is going to be. Basically, you guys may have noticed that we didn't get this last Dev Diary right on time like we usually do. And that's completely okay. The devs do want to let us know that releasing the Dev Diaries has been surprisingly difficult, and maintaining their regularity takes time away from pretty urgent development tasks. And that's where Conroy comes in, baby. You boys can be absolutely certain that as long as you're posting these Dev Diaries, okay, on the Reddit page, I'll come over here and I'll make a video on them, okay? Dev Diaries for Into the Radius 2 are of the utmost importance when it comes to public relations, marketing the game, okay, and getting the word of it out there. That's specifically the reason I make these videos. I want this game to blow up. I love the community of Into the Radius. I love Into the Radius. So let that be a little bit of inspiration, a little motivation to the devs. Keep them coming. Keep the Dev Diaries coming, because I will continue to give you free PR. All right, we gotta build the hype up for Into the Radius 2. I have a feeling deep down in my nutsack that this is going to be an absolutely magical game, and it's going to be way better than you even expected. Anyways, boys, that's literally the end of the video. I don't even know what number Dev Diary this is. 14, 15, 69. I don't fucking know, but it's the end of it, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said early on, leave some comments. Let me know what you guys think about everything I talked about in this video, especially whether or not you guys want to see the dumpster fire concepts that didn't end up making it into the Radius 2. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it. I make these of my own free will, basically. So if you want to support me a little bit too, go ahead and grab a membership, dude, and subscribe to the channel. Shout out to the boys. Thank you, boys, for supporting the channel. I love you, boys. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing weekend, buddy. Relax and enjoy it. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.